We cannot get away from the traditional ways of our people to the extent that we embrace other cultures and that are very destructive to our people. And that is how we treat other people, that we must treat them with great dignity and respect. Teneni gidikat haadadandi chanjaragot teneda sato beho tasseni gidikat hatahe raho tahada ei hadako hati donne hotatni haro atone cheleni gidikat patasseni gidod hatsheda hanana keda dat eida but it's akut eta nensne jeda donni akut ei hadikat ahozan the idea that when we as the Ne, when we're away somewhere and we meet another the Ne, we find out how we are related by clan. And the question is presented always, and it says, Hatidone, which means, in a way, I don't recognize you as a surface person. Tell me how you are a surface person. So you give your clan from your mother's side, and you're born for your father's clan, and then you give your grandparents on your mother's side and your father's side. And those are the 4 clans that you're a descendant of. And then you match those up with whoever you meet, and then find out what type of kinship or relationship that you have between the 2 of you. And so that's very important in the traditional way, is to know your clan. After you give your clan, you always say, that is what makes me a surface person. Is the way we say it. And so the teaching of our people is that there are many people that we are related to in one way or another. And the traditional way of our people was always to be friendly with people and to get to know who they are. It doesn't matter if they are Dene or some other people, strangers, and so on. And the way that our people were, and way back, hundreds of years ago, is that they attracted people from all over this part of the continent. And people came from distant places. They would be traveling for months because they wanted to be where the Dene were, the Netcha. And so all these many different clans came, and they became one people. And the reason they came was because the Dene understood that there had to be a way to unite the people and to be able to have the joy, happiness, confidence, and peace as a society. And so it is that it became probably known as the WWII Creed. And the way that our people lived was to be at peace with one another. And they also became a people that would be willing to fight to protect that way, that beauty way. And that's the only thing that our people were known for, that they were peacemakers and they were peacekeepers. And that's very important for our people to understand. And the teaching of our people as far as the kinship and clan system, we have almost 150 different clan families that came together to make the Navajo Nation, or the Dene Nation. And the thing that happened is that the people intermarried, the different clans, and they became one family. And so every clan family, all of the 150 or so, had their own first man and first woman, and they had their own way to govern their clan. And so it was very important for people to know that the clan and their clan families and their clan business was their business. And every clan family took care of themselves. But they did intermingle, and they spoke one language, and they lived under one creed. And so during the time when the Europeans first arrived, of course, in the 1800s, they would make peace with one clan family, and they would think that they had made peace with all of the Ne. But that was not so. And so sometimes in the history you read where the Ne would not keep a peace treaty. That's not so. If you made peace with one clan and you neglected another clan, then they were not obligated to keep the peace. And so when you consider all the many different clans that you would have to go to make peace with each one of those clan families, it's quite an endeavor. But our people have always been willing to accept other people into the Neh clan groups and clan families and so on. And so all down through the years, and for many hundreds of years, that's the way our people were. But the other thing is that when the Neh first came into the area, there were already people here. And these were people of the Pueblo people and the cliff dwellers. Now, those are the only ones that I want to ever mention. There were other people in that, but those are the ones that I would prefer to mention. But there were many of them, different groups, all over. And today, of course, some of the people are referred to as the Fremont people, or the Magayon people, the Sanagua people, and the Hohokam, the Magayon. All of these people, they had groups of people, and they became the Neh. And so when you hear anthropologists say, we don't know what happened to them, they just up and vanished. That's not so. They became the Neh. And then, of course, there's a lot of credit given to the people that we, as the Neh, refer to as Anasazi. The Anasazi did not come into the Southwest until the Neh, some 2,000 years ago, after they had been here for about 300 years. The Anasazi came. The reason that is so is because the oral history and traditional teachings and that, at various times they would say, before there were Anasazi, which in our language they would say, Anasazi atohadvehantan. And then the other thing is they would say, during the time when the Anasazi were here, Anasazi haslehantan. And then afterwards they say, Anasazi tasnihantan. That means after the Anasazi destroyed themselves. So whenever those stories were told, that's the way that our people would refer to a certain time period. And so it's very important to understand. And there's a lot of credit in that people give to the Anasazi. They were not a good people. They did not like anything of a sacred nature. They mocked the God that the holy people, that the Neh, worshipped. And it was something that they did not like. The Anasazi, well, you might even say that they hated things of goodness. And they were not a very good people. They did some very evil things. And the reason for their destruction is because they did evil things. But the Neh have always been the peacemakers and the peacekeepers, because you cannot be at war with people and be a peaceful people and maintain a journey on the WWII path. You cannot destroy the other people's joy. You cannot destroy other people's happiness. You cannot destroy other people's confidence. And you cannot destroy other people's peace. Another thing that our people mention is that when they came into the area, there were people that were probably Pueblo people that were living at the place that became known as Chaco Canyon. There were already people living there, but it was later on that the Anasazi came and they took over and made those people their slaves to begin with. And then they went and made slaves of the other Pueblo groups and that, and had them as part of their way of life of slavery. And so there's a lot of stories in that. And the Anasazi were very fearful of the Neh, even though that our people say they had contact with them where they would provide them food stuff and other materials that they would trade. And they did trade with them, and the Neh did tolerate them, because the Neh, their creed was, to maintain joy, happiness, confidence, and peace. And they couldn't do that if they were at some kind of odds with the Anasazi people. And so they lived in close proximity for almost 300 years. And during all that time, the Anasazi kept their slave trade and did all of the things that were not acceptable to the Neh. But the Neh, as their belief, was to allow people to do the things that they felt like they had the right to do. And so that's pretty much the information about the relationship and how the Diné treated the Anasazi, and how they didn't really have that same treatment given to them by the Anasazi. The other thing is that when the Anasazi destroyed themselves, a lot of these slaves and that they had held captive, as I mentioned, were the Pueblo people, and some of them, they ran off, and they went and hid in the canyons, especially Grand Canyon, and they lived there for a period of time until they came back out. And I remember the story about the feelings of some of our leaders and that, like Manuelito, would refer to some of these Pueblo people as little rabbits, Kasyaja or Kaspai. He didn't have very much respect for a lot of these Pueblo people, because they're the ones that gave in to the Anasazi and just went along with them and then adopted many of their ways. And so it was that that was the feeling of Manuelito. And as we progress through history, of course, we've had several world wars, and our people have always participated in war. And the one warrior group that our people kind of have recognized among us are the Code Talkers of the United States Marine Corps. But one thing I will mention is that the Diné Code Talkers were very true, real Code Talkers. They took our language and they made a code. So it was like a code within a code. There are other Native American tribes in that spoke their language over the open airways, but they didn't speak in code. And so it is that a lot of times, this is my own thinking, is that they talked their language and it was not in code. But the Diné Code Talkers developed a code that they could talk to each other, and any other Navajos that were not in the military or in the Marine Corps could not understand the messages and that they were sending back and forth. And so that made them real Code Talkers. So the way that our Code Talkers and that developed their code is that there were words in that were very important and very personal to them that they applied to the construction development of the code. And one of the code words is very important, and it was the Nihima, which means our mother. And the word Nihima, it was applied to the United States of America. And they understood that when they raised their hand and they took that oath to support, defend, and protect the Constitution of the United States, that was protecting our mother. And so it was the understanding of the Diné that were part of the Code Talker program, is that they were protecting their mother. They made a promise to the mother that I will do everything that I can to protect you. And so that was very important as far as the warrior aspect, because that is the same thing that our actual warriors did when they would protect the creed of protecting the joy, happiness, confidence, and peace. And that's the only time that they would take up arms, is to protect their way of life. And so it is that the Constitution of the United States is the blueprint for our way of life. And so our people were willing to call this country our mother and to protect her. And so that is the teachings of them. But the idea of our people accepting other people into the tribe is so very important. There's a traditional way that was how the Diné came in great numbers. Because they were in great numbers, such people as the Anasazi were actually fearful of them, and would not be too aggressive against the Diné, because they had all these clan families, and they figured if they were too aggressive that the Diné would turn on them. And so that's part of the understanding in that we have. The Neto Hayun is what they say, that there were many people who were Diné, and so they were able to protect one another. The recent history about sometimes our people are getting away from this idea of traditional teachings of accepting other people. Down here in the Western Agency, just recently, when I say recent, it would be within the past the last 20 or 30 years. But there was a group of Native American people that had lived there for almost 100 years, or maybe even more than 100 years. But they were not of the Navajo Nation. And they lived there, and as they lived there, they began to speak the Navajo Bazad, the Bazad, and then they also practiced the ceremonies. And their children married into the various clans that lived in the area and everything. And so they became just like the Neh. But the only thing was that they were not recognized by the tribal or the federal government as a legitimate tribe. And so they didn't have access to a lot of the benefits for their education, for their health and welfare, and for their economic development. And so what they did is they went to the local tribal government of the Neh and asked if they could be given census numbers and be enrolled with the Neh. But sadly, the local officials denied them that opportunity. And so eventually, of course, they went at other means than that, and they were able to get land, and now they have access to many of the government programs, and they are recognized as a separate tribe and a separate group of people. But in the past, that would not have ever been the case. And so there are things that our people are getting away from, which is very sad. And so it is that we forget sometimes that we have to be a united people as the Neh to protect the joy and the happiness, the confidence and peace that people can have. And we need to do whatever we can to help one another. And I think that, our people are marrying into other groups of people, Malagana, Nakai, Nakai, and all these different people of the world. And even in my own family, I have a daughter that married an Irish gentleman, and they had, of course, my little daughter's name is Navajo, and then an Irish name as to say her name in the Neh Bazad is Atahnaz Ba, and then her last name is Flynn. But when they were married, I, of course, took the time to try to learn some of the old Irish songs and that so I could sing to my grandkids. And I learned one that was Coming Home Song in the Irish language. But unfortunately, my son-in-law passed away, and it was very sad. And so it is that we're related in many ways to other groups of people throughout the world, the English, the Germans, the French, and the Italians, and the Spanish-speaking people, and the Portuguese and that. But we have ties to other people in the world, and there are so many people in that we, as the Neh, could accept. And hopefully in the future that we can clear up a lot of these issues that make it so that we only accept a certain blood quantum. And that's one of the things that we would probably present in our future presentation, is to our understanding and how it should be applied in the traditional ways of our people. We cannot get away from the traditional ways of our people to the extent that we embrace other cultures and that are very destructive to our people. And that is how we treat other people, that we must treat them with great dignity and respect, and the way that we ourselves would like to be treated. And those are the things that we are told in our traditional teaching.
Hey, thanks for watching our videos. If you like what you see, don't forget to subscribe and hit that notification bell so you never miss one of our uploads. Also, head over to our website, NavajoTraditionalTeachings.com. Sign up for our email list. Okay.